All right, here we are with our singing bowl.
The singing bowl that's launched 1,000 controversies.
That's right.
The infamous singing bowl.
The infamous singing bowl. We were just saying, I'm going to feel obliged to use it now. It's for you, Catherine.
Apologies.
Apologies, Catherine.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm here with my friend, my new friend, Shiralee.
Yeah.
Welcome, Shiralee.
Yeah. Thank you, Sophie. Yeah.
So we've been having some interesting conversations online
Yeah.
for the last couple of months, I guess.
Yeah. Last few weeks. Yeah.
It was sort of like when I was being told that I wasn't a real Christian and that I was going to hell. In the midst of all that, Shirley kind of came to my defence.
Yes.
In a lovely way and with nice, calm, common sense. And I thought that it was a bit ironic that we ended up becoming Facebook friends through that.
Yes,
and
yeah.
so now here we are.
Sort of jumping to her defence against the Christians who were having a go at her for being less of a Christian, for owning a singing bowl. And I found the whole thing kind of ridiculous because they're all arguing about whether or not it's okay while also being Christians themselves.
Yes.
Sort of a little bit of a back and forth discussion about whether or not Sophie is going to go to hell for owning a singing bowl, and I found the whole thing kind of absurd.
And because I was leading Catherine astray, I was going to go a hotter hell. Didn't know
Because
there was
there's
such a thing.
multi-tiered hells,
Because
yeah.
I was leading people astray.
Yeah.
So through all that, we kind of, in the back and forths, I got the sense that Shirley kind of was clued into a few things and knew a few things about life and religion and
Yeah, I think
stuff.
the first thing we discussed was the whether or not hell was actually a terrifying place, literally full of fire and brimstone, rather than, a state of mind or a state of being. Or I think I was arguing at the time that which version of hell, because there's Hades, there's Gehenna, there's Sheol, and they all get translated to being hell, but being very different places. So
yes,
yeah.
that's right. And the main word in the New Testament that gets translated to hell is Gehenna.
Yeah.
And that's the main one that Jesus uses.
Yeah.
And have you looked into Gehenna?
I have looked into Gehenna.
Yeah.
I've looked into Gehenna a little bit more actually since having that discussion, because I knew roughly about Gehenna, and so now I can confidently explain what Gehenna is. It is a literal rubbish dump outside of Jerusalem. It is a valley. Translates. I think its Hebrew name is Gehenna, which the Valley of Hinnom. Yeah, who owned the valley at some point in the past, and the association with it being a horrible place comes from. I don't know if it was originally what it was used for, but it came to be associated with sacrificing children to Moloch.
Yes, that's right.
And
so it sort of became unclean.
it became an unclean place, and because sacrificing children to Moloch involved throwing children into the flames, that sort of turned into a thing, but it also got turned into a rubbish dump. And
burning rubbish.
Burning piles of rubbish. So when Gehenna gets mentioned in the New Testament, it's with that sort of imagery of a tainted place full of burning rubbish. But also, the funny part about it is you can find Gehenna on Google Maps. And so you can look at what it looks like, and it is a valley directly beneath where the Second Temple was, on the Temple Mount. You have this valley underneath it.
Yeah.
And so when I was looking at it, I'm just like, well, what a powerful image. You have the holiest place in,
Right.
at the time, Judaism, and then the early Christian movement, overlooking the pit that's used as a rubbish dump. That's this cursed place.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the idea is if you were cursed, that's where they would put your body.
Yes. Yeah.
So like in a lot of the Christian history, where people get buried is very significant to people.
Yeah.
And like if you're allowed on holy ground, or if you have a proper funeral, it's like it's almost is akin to being either going to hell in our modern sense or not, if you are given honour and a proper place of burial and where your bones are is all very significant.
Yeah.
So the idea of going to Gehenna
Yeah.
is that you're tossed out.
You were
as,
garbage.
You're cursed.
Yeah.
And because it's interesting that Jesus, even in some of the things he says about going to Gehenna, he talks about having your whole body thrown into Gehenna.
Yes.
So like our modern concept of hell,
Yeah.
your body didn't go to hell, does it?
No, it's not. Which is another interesting thing, because I go down so many rabbit holes, and I'm currently down a Neoplatonism rabbit hole.
Is that right?
And I've been reading, it's probably going to get you some comments underneath the video if they know who I'm talking about, Bart D. Ehrman's book, Heaven and Hell.
Who was the name again?
Bart Ehrman.
Bart Ehrman.
So he's a Bible scholar who was a Christian who then turned atheist, but he still writes a lot about the historical Jesus and that sort of thing. A lot of people don't like him because he is an atheist now. So,
right.
But he writes some pretty good books, and he's written one of his recent ones called Heaven and Hell that discusses the history of heaven and hell and how that's come to sort of be expanded within Christian theology from its roots within Judaism and Neoplatonic thought and all these other influences where people have sort of fleshed out their idea of heaven and hell from Zoroastrianism and these sort of like influences that have come to sort of expand on how we think about it.
Yeah. Because you realise in the Old Testament there's no concept of hell.
No, it's Sheol.
Yeah.
It's
just
so
death,
when
where
you,
everyone goes.
when you die in you call it the Old Testament, and I'd be like, that's the Hebrew Bible. The Tanakh.
It's ours now.
Yeah. So you read through that, and a lot of people, read the Bible, and they don't read it as individual books. They read it as the Bible, like beginning to end. The whole thing is consistent and with God as the author, but how it was written historically, like whether or not you want to say that it's an inspired work or not, that's a completely different discussion. How it was written historically was, the Old Testament was written by Jewish authors, and each book was sort of written at different time periods, with like hundreds of years apart sometimes. And so their way of thinking would shift as time went on. And so Sheol was imagined as, a place that the dead went and fell asleep. Yeah. And so they weren't
sort of unconscious.
They were just unconscious. And that was it. Like, and that's why in the Psalms when, David is talking about, who's going to worship you from Sheol. That is pretty much it. Like, there's no
the land of the living.
There's land of the living, the land of the dead. Once you're in Sheol, you can't worship God anymore because you're just unconscious. Yeah, like that's it. Yeah. It's just sort of this state of non-existence, which gets expanded on later.
And I think the only time that Jesus talks, and it's very much like a story, is the idea of Lazarus and the rich man. Yeah. And that's got a sort of almost like a supernatural heaven-hell kind of vibe, but it's really, I think it's describing Sheol. Yes. And the bosom of Abraham was supposed to be where the righteous would go. Had sort of comfort.
And so that period when Jesus was alive, the idea of Sheol and heaven and hell had started to be a bit more expanded. Yeah. And so because especially after the destruction of the first temple, and especially the occupation by the Romans, people were starting to think, like, righteous people are being punished. How is this just? And, going to heaven started to be a thing. It's like, if you died righteous, even if you had a really crap life here on earth, you're going to go to heaven. And if you died, in a state of, sinning against God, you would be obliterated. So I don't think the concept of eternal torture had existed yet. Yeah.
Which it's crazy. And like when I've looked into Judaism, like current Judaism, their concept of a place of punishment is just that. It's a place of purification. Yeah. Which makes much better sense to me, yeah.
It's not a permanent thing. It's a sort of where you go to sort of be cleansed, pay your debt. So the idea of an eternal torture in the sense of hell makes no sense if you believe in a just and loving God. Yeah.
And like if you imagine a king or a ruler, that your most evil despot ruler that would torture someone for their whole life, even you think that would be really horrible, wouldn't it? Yeah. And if their only sin was that they didn't have allegiance to him or something, or love him. Yeah. Or the Catholic. Then you go like, that's it. You go, I'm going to torture you.
Or the Catholic Church's loophole that I think of a lot with Constantine the Great, where he confessed on his deathbed and got baptized on his deathbed, so that anything before that was suddenly like wiped away. Yeah. Like, it didn't matter if he murdered like thousands of
His
people
family members, I think.
his family members. As long as he was baptized on his deathbed.
I changed my mind. Yes.
So yeah, the whole idea, like, sort of coming at it from that point of view, when they're saying that Sophie's going to go to hell for using a singing bowl, and I'm here like, it's a musical instrument. No one's going to go to hell for using a recorder. Like, your parents might be annoyed if you're 5 years old and you come home with a recorder from school, but it's really what you put into it.
And it's just, what's the word? Like, it just makes it all so silly.
Yes.
That it discredits everything.
And I was thinking of another historical example, because my brain always goes down historical examples, because I did a archaeology degree. Did you? Yes, now I'm permanently stuck thinking about historical examples and every little thing. But I think of an example I was thinking about from the Christianization of England. And so one of my special interests is early Christianity, and my family has like ties to the British Isles going way back, but and Ireland especially. But one of the things that I was thinking about in regards to the singing bowl is Saint Augustine of Canterbury. He was the first. That's a different
St. Augustine, is it?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Not Augustine of Hippo. Not the Augustine. A different Augustine.
Okay.
In the 5th century, when converting the Anglo-Saxons to Christianity, they had the problem of, what do we do with all these temples? And so Augustine had kind of come up with the idea of you reconsecrate them. So they stop being pagan temples and they start being Christian temples, because, as he said, they're perfectly good buildings. So why not strip them of everything and just use them for Christian churches? And so a lot of the earliest churches were sort of used for that purpose, or at least built on like prior holy sites, which is why the British Isles is full of so many sacred springs that are suddenly like dedicated to St. Bridget or whoever.
Yes, I think that's what Christians haven't understood, is like a lot of the people now are sort of going back and going, oh, this was pagan, Christmas is pagan, or this is pagan, or it's like, they don't understand that kind of integration that went on, and that the whole point of Christianity is it is Judaism, and then when it's set free from that, it becomes something else, and it's like, in my mind, like, you probably got a different perspective, but like, it is kind of a bringing everything in to God's house, in a sense.
Yes.
Like, so it's not.
I view the singing bowl thing as this. Okay, it comes from Tibet, it's made by people who are probably Buddhist, and it's now being used by a Christian for Christian purposes. Yeah. So, in a way, it's sort of like, has a repurpose.
Yeah. And I was thinking, too, I think a lot of people get freaked out from the Christian perspective, because they kind of hear these testimonies of people that have given up, some terrible Satanism or something, and they have to get rid of their books, or, there's something where they... That there's still some object that is like transmitting something that is allowing something demonic into their life.
Which to me, like, I find kind of laughable, because I'm like, well, you're not using it for that purpose.
No. So in this situation, but I think that's the resonance around it, why people get freaked out, because it's not like I was using it for anything anyway.
Oh, you were never using it for a non-Christian purpose.
No, and it wasn't making me think, oh yeah, Buddha, he's the one, really.
You're going to go out and just buy like a book by Aleister Crowley or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Tibetan singing.
And I mean, there are times if you want to stay on a particular track, but it's still, it's going to be you going to feel it. If I feel that the singing bowl is corrupting me in some way, then I'm going to go, I don't want to do that anymore.
I just brought my Bible with me, but I think there is this entire point in there about using discernment. And this is the discussion that we had with Catherine about using your discernment. And
and that's an individual thing.
Yeah.
Discernment has to be something you learn. And I mean, when people are young, you need sort of boundaries, like when you're young as a person, and when you're young as in your faith, you might need more boundaries.
Yeah.
But the objective is that you become discerning yourself.
I'm not encouraging people to go out and buy like a Ouija board or something like that.
But
I feel like there is a big spectrum in between Ouija board and Tibetan singing bowl. If you start being scared of every little thing because of its potential, satanic influence.
Yeah, and the feeling that people get is of that they need to control other people.
Yes,
I think is like a really significant sort of underpinning of that whole dynamic that was making me. Because I've experienced things in the past that I feel like your will is really important. Your personal will is really important. And that, I talked a bit about the religious spirit, that idea that force, whatever that is, that gets people into bondage, into religious bondage and religious mania. It kind of suppresses your will.
And it shouldn't, like, if your relationship with God or the divine or whatever you want to call it, like the creative force out there, should not be thrust upon you through coercion or fear.
That's right.
Because if you're reacting to something out of fear, you're not genuinely loving that thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it always amuses me that like people have these encounters with Christ and their life changes and they give themselves to God and start on this journey, and then suddenly Christian starts telling them they need to do this and this and this, until they get to the point where they don't trust the very thing in them that brought them to Christ in the first place.
They get told that spirituality is a checklist.
Yeah.
That to be spiritual, you
That's
need
right.
to, or have faith. You've got to go through this bingo card of things you are and aren't allowed to do.
That's right.
And
this is what you're allowed to wear or not, or this or that. Or
a lot of Christians just sort of treat it like it's if you have that attitude that you're going to treat it to a stepping stone to committing like grievous sins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it ends up just being surfaces, like indicators,
that
you're really just giving, signalling to other Christians.
Yes, and it sort of lacks a depth.
Yeah. And to me it's like exactly what the story of Jesus is about.
Yeah,
he's hitting up against exactly the same thing. That they just like give us a sign, like
authority,
you're not part of our club, so you've got to give us the indicators that you're part of us. Or
how dare you do nice things? We're going to destroy you on the Sabbath.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, healing people. What? Must be through the devil.
Obviously. Because the devil is just itching to help.
Yeah, that's right. The devil just loves healing people and and driving out his servants.
So that's sort of one of the things that Sophie and I ended up discussing, I think, and sort of ending up sort of agreeing on was the fact that some people just sort of approach faith as a sort of dogmatic set of rules that they have to abide by, also just sort of using it as a cudgel for controlling others.
Yeah. So we don't actually know each other very well, and we just had a bit of a conversation before this, and are starting to get a bit of a picture of cup of tea,
cup of tea and a yak.
But I haven't heard much about your current spirituality.
Oh yeah.
And do you feel like talking a bit about that, where you're at?
Sure.
And you can talk a bit about how you got there too.
I describe myself as being a little bit. I describe myself as a bit of a spiritual seeker, which some people might say just means I'm confused.
Aren't we all?
I own a lot of books and read a lot of things, but it's I grew up with a lot of influence from Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm technically baptised Orthodox Christian, although I left the faith when I was about 16.
Greek Orthodox.
Greek Orthodox. So I'm not Greek, but my stepfather was. So I still have a little bit of a soft spot for very ornate churches because of that.
That's what I was going to tell you, that when I was going through this, like, where do I fit in, I went to the Greek Orthodox church in the city, and it was Easter.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And there was a lot of things.
It's very ritualised,
And it was like, it was a nice relief for me, because I'd come from a Pentecostal background, where it's all very personal. Yeah. And the preacher's talking to you, and everyone's very, back and forth, which is maybe its strength. But it was really interesting to be in this Orthodox situation where the priests were just doing whatever they had to do. It was a holy ritual. They didn't really care what you were doing. You just there.
Yeah. And then at like a certain point, you will get up, move around, or you start crossing yourself.
Yeah, it's sort of personal in a way.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a nice relief in a way. You're not there, because the Pentecostal thing can be very much like you've got to emote, and you've got to feel things all the time, and you're always got to be experiencing God.
So my favorite part of the Greek Orthodox churches is the sort of incense and the vibe. Like, you get a very spiritual vibe in there. Like, it's very much a spiritual place. And so when I first entered a Protestant church, it's like one of those ones where it's like very beige and there's just like a Bible verse up on the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so boring. Where's your pretty artwork? So,
yes, well, coming from not any sort of traditional church and having all my spiritual growth being in that sort of more Pentecostal kind of where you're meeting in just in school halls and things. I used to have nice experiences going to the Anglican church when I go to Melbourne. There's across the road from the Flinders Street station is St Paul's.
Yes, I love St Paul's.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And I go in there. I've had some amazing encounters with God in there.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, just amazing timing. I'll just be there, and there's something going on, and I'm crying, and like God's talking to me, and this is So it's really interesting, like that idea of having a sacred space.
Yeah.
Which Protestantism is kind of like got rid of in a way.
A lot of them have sort of obliterated that feeling where it's sort of, it's between you and the Bible, and your experiences outside of church is when you're praying, whereas I think Catholicism and Orthodoxy have that sort of like your experiences in the church, so that's where the spiritual thing is. And so because it's so rooted in tradition in those ones, it's less about the personal experience while you're home reading the Bible. Like you can have a personal experience while you're home reading the Bible, but that's not the focus. It's the focus on being in the church and like being part of that tradition.
And then I suppose that it tips over to the church having too much control.
Yes,
yeah. So it's
far the other way.
And in a way, I'm sort of thinking now that it's like human life on this earth is always going to be stumbling and fumbling and feeling its way and going too much this way and too much that way, and it's like, so it's not like, I think it's a bit of a false path to sort of feel like, well, you're going to get it right, we're going to start this new church and this time we're really going to get it right,
Yeah, and they've always come out with like, the new Christ church of blah and blah and redemption and anointed and it just keeps going.
That's right.
And there's some offshoot of an offshoot of an offshoot of an offshoot.
That's right,
Yeah. And then they'll have a schism within their congregation, and then someone else will go off and start their own split.
That's right, because they won't agree about
and I'll
something.
just get very confused.
Yeah. So I do think that that at the end of the day, it is something to do with coming into wholeness ourselves as individuals.
Yes,
That's the path I've ended up on.
Yeah. So the thing I was dying to ask you is, how did you end up coming to Christianity?
Right. Okay. Well, in my early 20s, I read a book. I think I find it really hard to it's not like a nice clean cut story.
Yeah.
So my mum, when I was little, wanted to turn to God. I think I talked about it recently.
Yeah.
But she, so she'd grown up going to Sunday school in a sort of what was pretty normal Australian suburban whatever then, and sort of turned away from it as a teenager, wanted to be an artist and wanted to experience life and blah, 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 and ended up going down that route of alternative kind of culture. But then when she got to the end of herself, she wanted to turn back to God. She went and got herself a Bible, and one of the first people to turn up were the Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, of course, yeah.
They
sniffed her out.
They come to the opening of a paper bag if they felt they could convert someone. Yeah.
But that didn't quite stick. But because she was knocking around with alternative kind of people, she ended up, there was a friend's boyfriend who would come across an Indian guru called Maya Baba.
Okay.
Something in the 60s. He was actually Persian, so he probably got that Zoroastrian kind of background. I don't know, but he seemed to be part of the guru's sort of system in India. I don't know. He was definitely in India because she ended up going to India.
Okay,
But he dropped his body by then.
That was
what
what
they called it. He
dropped
died.
his body, like, oh no, what's...
like, what? Damn.
Oh, something's missing. Oh, what on the floor?
So she followed that for a little while, and that I have fond memories of that, and I think it sort of put a lot of, like, the Eastern thing, put it down a layer of quite a positive experience.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that's why I kind of like, I think this is a bit Indian, and I quite like that
sort of
Indian
Bohemian sort of...
Yeah.
And artist vibe, I like to call it.
Ah, yes. And we'd be playing Indian music and stuff like that. And But then it kind of morphed into something else. So someone came along with this, like, oh, God's spoken to me.
Yeah.
Come and be part of my cult. And she was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, do you want to join a cult? Yeah, sure.
They probably didn't say it quite like that.
Yeah,
But so she went off on this sort of tangent of, and I think it was probably because she had this basis of Christianity and maybe a very religious aunt. So she had this sort of feeling that, like, if you really love God, you're very austere and very religious. And,
oh, yes, yeah.
And so it sort of triggered a lot of those feelings. So it sort of brought the Bible into it, even though it had come through this Indian thing.
Yeah.
Then it became a sort of Bible-based cult that wasn't Christianity. It's very hard to explain. Like, and so it was, even though it was very intimate, it was a true cult in the sense of that there was no real sort of external boundaries, this is what we believe kind of thing. It was all very much on the sort of feeling level of what God's saying now, and it's all coming through the guy who's getting the transmissions.
So just him getting these messages?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so that was a big shaping force, like the big shaping force in my childhood from when I was about 7 till... Well, it's sort of like the actual intimate connection. We actually moved into their house.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And then moved to places close by them for a few years. I don't know how long it was, like, till I was about 10, I suppose. So it's only 3 years, but that was big. But then what happened is that they broke off from Mum.
Yeah.
For one reason or another. And I think she then went through some spiritual, psychological, weird, kind of like possession.
Okay.
To put it, I don't know, like that's a bit dramatic, but she changed personality and became very religious. And that's why I get this sort of discernment about the religious spirit, because it was like something came into our life and took possession of her that was definitely negative, but it made her very religiously obsessed.
Okay, that's kind of very weird.
Yeah, just reading her Bible all the time and not relating properly to people. And I think it was one of your friends was talking to Catherine the other day about OCD expressing itself through religiosity. So it was a bit like that as well.
Happen. Yeah.
But so the funny thing is, my mum is very down to earth.
Yeah.
She's a weird mix of things, and she's very discerning, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's hard to explain how those two things that she went down this track.
Just by having this experience, yeah.
But also that she really loves God.
Yeah.
And so she really believed it was God. And so I think something about, like, it feels like to me that no matter what you do in life, if you do it genuinely and with your whole heart, you're going to end up all right.
Yes,
no matter how
that's
crazy
a very good attitude to have. Yeah,
I really believe that if someone's really sincere and they're really trying to do the right thing and find the truth, you'll get there no matter how crazy and off the track you get. So she kind of ended up sort of... It's hard to explain without going into the whole big story, but I just wanted to get back to where she was starting to knock around at some Christian churches. She used to go to these churches, and she'd come and visit me and say, I went to this church the other day and it was really amazing, and people were speaking in tongues and they were falling over.
Oh, very Pentecostal. Yeah.
And like that was like, for both of us, like somehow I wasn't put off God, even though like it's taken a lot of years to sort of untangle whatever happened there.
Yeah.
I somehow was still interested, like yourself, like a seeker, like just naturally interested and curious and trying to understand what ultimate truth is.
Yeah, being quite open-minded.
Yeah. And so that sounded exciting and interesting to me. Like I was really attracted to the idea of God being real and dynamic.
Yeah.
I was a bit put off by anything too sort of staid and traditional and just having to know when to stand up and when to sit down and, you know. But so I, through a book that she had picked up in her travels, as she was starting to go in and out of like church circles, which we hadn't been part of church circles when we were part of this cult kind of thing. But I was reading a book and he was talking about something about like something happened as I was reading it. My faith kind of lifted and I had this sense that...
Do you remember the book?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, it's actually gone out of hit. The author has gone out of favour with a lot of Christians now. His name's Kenneth Hagin.
Kenneth Hagin, yeah. I think I've heard of his name.
Yeah, he was big on faith, and he did go overboard. He went into some extremes, but it was called The Art of Intercession.
Yeah.
And I remember I was a young mum at the time. I had kids quite young.
Yeah.
And I was kind of always feeling a bit like overwhelmed by the state of the world or one thing or another, and were my children going to be all right? And this book talked about the idea of prayer in a like this idea of intercession, that you could sort of change reality through certain kinds of deeper types of prayer.
Yeah.
You can shift things, and
yeah.
something about it was just so inspiring that there was something you could do. There was like this idea that there was something you could do about the state of the world kind of feeling, you know. And so I had a born again experience.
Oh wow!
Reading that.
Yeah.
And then it was interesting because it wasn't within church. No Christians
What
were.
did that experience feel like?
It was sort of like, I suppose. Well, they talk about it being like your spirit coming alive, and that's what it's like. Like your spirit, as opposed to your mind. Your spirit is to do with faith, hope, love. You know.
Yeah.
So it was like a surge of that suddenly. Being able to believe, I don't know. I haven't thought about.
I always think of the description from Paul on the way to Damascus when he had the scales fall away from his eyes, and that whole thing after going blind on the road and then going and getting baptized and the scales fell away from his eyes.
Yeah,
and his whole
it was like a shift. A shift of, like I remember thinking afterwards, it was like life was just sort of going around and around, and then suddenly it was shifted, and it was like you were still going around and around, but now you had another directionality to it, something like that.
Yeah.
But what it did do for me was, you know, I'd always thought, oh, maybe I should do things, maybe I should read the Bible, or you know, like I didn't.
Yeah.
But this, whatever happened to me, was like, I want to read the Bible, I want to go to church, you know, I want to pray, and it was like exciting and like new and
light
open.
switches on.
Yeah. Which was different to then later on I got baptized in the Holy Spirit. That's another story, which was a different experience. Yeah. So that started me on that journey, and it was through, as I said, Pentecostal. I ended up finding a church, and I had amazing experiences there. But then my life got complicated. Like I said, it's a big story, so I don't really know. I just wanted to sort of say, like, there was this amazing experience. Went for maybe a couple of years or a year, but then I kind of crashed, and I had some sort of breakdown.
Yeah.
And life just got more complex, and so it took me into having to go deeper, and left the church and did all the wrong things. Shacked up with someone and
as you do,
had more babies out of wedlock
and bought a Tibetan singing bowl.
That came later when I go back to God. But I never went away from God, because my experience of God had been outside of the church anyway. But I couldn't maintain my Christian persona anymore, and I think that's what it was about. It was like that was deconstructed. And so I kept my faith was still there, but it was just went through a whole big transition.
It's also just a very human experience to sort of go on the rails and off the rails and sort of work things out a lot. And have that time where you're sort of, I guess, just experiencing humanness. And so I think that's where a lot of my problem with a lot of the Christian fundamentalists comes from, that they judge people for having that. Yeah.
And judge themselves.
Yes.
And I think that's what I found is like, and I think it was good that I had my experience of God outside of the church, so I didn't rely on the church for my experience of God. Because I think, like you say, sometimes you've got to let go of the picture you have of yourself or God and make a bit of a mess. And if you don't have the confidence that you're allowed to do that, or that you're allowed to make mistakes, you can't really grow. You have to stay on that very superficial level of yourself.
My minister friend calls it the God box. You know, putting God in the box.
And it's just like, I've just got to get through life and not do too many bad things and stay in this box, and then I'll get to go to heaven.
As
if that's what Jesus was talking about.
And I need to think of God in a certain way and put him in a box and
keep talking about him and keep annoying people about him. And
become a big fan. of the Bible and focus solely on the Bible, and
Yeah.
if you deviate outside of the translation or
Singing bowls.
if you buy a Tibetan singing bowl and have a wind chime, or
yes.
next thing you know, you're out in the graveyard sacrificing chickens for the full moon. Yeah.
All the time.
All the time, yeah. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yes. So that's kind of how. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, whole another big story. But now it's your turn,
I'm very jealous of having that sort of spiritual experience, because I think I've only ever had maybe 2 or 3 experiences where I can go, I feel like I've had something touch me. Like I've had, when I was 10, I went to an Orthodox church, and if no one's ever been in one before, you kind of walk in and there's little icons, and you cross yourself like this. You got to make sure it's your 3 fingers, because that's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Uh-huh.
Cross yourself 3 times.
3 times, wow.
And kiss the icons as a sign of respect.
Okay.
So a lot of people think that icons are like idolatry, but it's the representation of the saint. So the saint, Mary, the Theotokos, the Mother of God, they're considered to be like intercessors. So you can pray to them to intercede on your behalf to God. So if you have a particular problem, they're supposed to be a bit more approachable than going straight to God. Yeah. So you cross yourself at the icons and kiss the icons and all that sort of thing. And so I remember going into a church and having a look at this icon, and it didn't have, most of the time icons, they're made out of metal, and they have a painting or a picture behind that's the face. So it's very ornate. So, on an icon it'll have the face of Jesus and Mary, and maybe their hands, but the rest is all metal. So this didn't have the picture behind it, so it was just black. It was like black hands, black faces. And I could see clear as day the faces that were meant to be there, even though the frame was empty. And it freaked me out.
Wow.
Because I was a kid and I didn't know what I was seeing.
Interesting.
And I tapped my mum going, "Do you see the faces there?" And she's like, "No, it's empty." And I'm like, "There's faces there. I felt like I could draw them, just from looking at that picture." Wow. So that was one of the very strange experiences I had. I've had other moments where I've walked into a church and sort of had that feeling of feeling like I was in another world. It was very it felt, I don't know how to describe it, sort of like being bathed in light. And I've had another experience like that while meditating. Weirdly enough, listening to a Tibetan singing bowl.
That's why
I felt like someone was shining a very warm light onto me. And so after the third experience, I sort of just wrote down, I think I wrote it's just I think I wrote, "The Christians are almost right." And then I wrote, "All is love." And then afterwards, I cannot remember.
Right, so that's what came out of you.
That's what
came
out of me from that experience.
Beautiful.
I was like, the Christians are almost right. And I've still got that somewhere. I'll have to take a photo of it for you and just send it to you, because I just wrote it down in a notebook.
Ah, lovely.
And then afterwards,
How long ago was that?
This was when was it? I think it was during the pandemic. I think about 2020.
Okay.
So I went through a very
more meditating time.
I had a lot of meditating time. At the time, I was going to this Zen Buddhist group and meditating with them.
Nice. Okay.
You spend about 2 hours sitting on a cushion, and then every now and again you just get up, move around, and it's very meditative. You do sort of feel like there's a sort of state that your brain gets in. And it does sort of. I don't know how to describe it. It's a little bit like pressing a hard reset on your brain. Yeah. I describe it as the feeling you get when you spend 45 minutes staring at the ocean. Yeah. You sort of get into that sort of very they call it a Zen state for a reason.
Yeah. I thought of it as because I started meditating at one point, not through any tradition, but just realising, because I come from this Pentecostal thing where you're always speaking, and even if it's in tongues, you're sort of relating all the time. And in a sense, you're talking to God a lot, but you don't do a lot of stopping and listening and being quiet. So I found I was getting a bit sort of crazy in my mind. So I started doing that myself. And I started to think of it as tuning an instrument.
Yes, yeah.
That it's your instrument gets out of tune. It has to constantly be
recalibrate it. Yeah.
And it's got to be tuned to something. So you can tune it to things around you, or like if the instrument is your soul and it's being tweaked and tuned, if you're doing it to whatever we're going to call it, the ultimate, we call it God, whatever. That's what it felt like meditation was like to me, was like letting go, stop trying to control everything, stop trying to know everything, stop trying to get
just
whatever's
exists,
true is true, whatever's there is there. I don't have to control it. I just have to be present and be aware of it, and that in that I can be retuned.
There's this very sort of resonant thing with me where I take what God said when Moses was talking to the burning bush. It's like, I am. And so to my brain, God is being. So,
Yeah. Amen. Well, we didn't get Dan. I sort of feel like I have to be careful not to go too long because people don't watch
we were
otherwise.
talking about meditation as well. So now, like, if they've watched this far in your videos, they're gonna be like, "Oh no, Tibetan singing bowls and meditation."
That's right.
And they're talking about Buddhist groups.
I think just give up on me, guys.
She's a lost cause, as you can tell. Yeah.
But I'm having fun. So I hope we'll do this again.
Yes, of course.
Yes, you'll come back again.
Of course,
yes, good. All right. So we'll continue on with our interesting discussions with Shiralee and me.
Yep.
And we'll see you all later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.